Hey gents, how are we this evening? Finally got around to doing a nice little overview of my World War II British kit. I've used it on and off for about 3 years now, and I've now got sort of a minor plethora of guns you could use for it, so I'll cover those too. Quick disclaimer. Yes, I do have a beard. Josh, I know you're watching, post your hate comments down below, you know where to find me. That being said, I am clearly not a reenactor. This stuff is catered for an airsoft loadout. And because of that, there are certain aspects of it which obviously are not going to be authentic. They're not going to be correct to any particular unit or time period. It's sort of an all-encompassing basic loadout, just the basics that someone can expand upon if they want to get increasingly accurate or actually end up getting into reenacting because of it. So we'll start with the uniform just quickly, my lovely 1917 dated letter opener. This is a British P37 combat dress, battle dress, whatever you want to call it. It's got my relevant insignia, which is number 3 Commando. I like the early war stuff, so whatever unit you're portraying, just do a bit of research, see what insignia you want to stick on there. Some German braces, they do the job nicely, nobody sees them. This is your cap comforter, which can also be used as a scarf if you unroll it. Nice bit of kit, you definitely want that. Mark II helmet, that's an original with a reproduction net and liner inside it. You can get those quite easily, or you can get reproduction ones. This is an open face balaclava in wool, which was quite common. You wouldn't wear all this stuff at once necessarily, it's just to show you all the options. Basic gloves, these aren't exactly accurate to World War II British gloves, but they look close enough. They're almost indistinguishable. The colour's not quite there, but I cut the forefinger and thumbs off of those so I can index things like speed loaders and BBs and stuff better. This is your P37 webbing in what would be called marching order. So you wouldn't actually wear it in combat like this, but this is just to demonstrate the capability. If you did want to carry a lot of stuff, you could. So in fighting order, you'd wear the small pack on your back. I keep mine there because it's just more accessible when there isn't someone to help you get things in and out if you want. You've got your 2 basic ammo pouches on the left and right, which can fit all sorts of stuff, as you'll see in a moment. Your canteen, which is definitely good to have. I wouldn't drink out of it though, especially if it's an original, but it looks the part, so you definitely want that. Moving down, you've got the puttees or the leg wraps, and you've also got gaiters, so you can choose either one of these two. Again, it's kind of your preference and depending on the period and the unit. I'll just go off historic photos. And lastly, we have the boots here. These are the DMS boots. These are actually post-war. They do look slightly cosmetically different, but they're close enough. And for airsoft purposes, these are much more viable because they're much more affordable. So that's kind of everything overall. I'll do a separate category on the weapons as well. So the P37 tunic or jacket, it's the battle dress that we went into the war with. The P37 denotes 1937 pattern, so it's the same with the webbing, it's 1937 pattern. So it's pretty basic. You've got 2 pockets here that are pleated. If I recall correctly, the later one does not have these pleats. You got your insignia here, whatever unit you're doing. The buttons are all brass. There's also some on the inside. Correction, they're actually on the trousers, but they go in these button hoops here to sort of keep them together. You've also got like a fastener down here which you want to do up. That keeps the bottom of the uniform sort of tight over your trousers after you put your trousers and your braces on. You've got adjustable cuffs as well with different positions. You want those to sit here, you don't want to ride over your hands of course. And you have basic shoulder balls with buttons. So you'll notice here mine are actually a little different because I've had to replace one. So keep an eye on the threads. Over time, of course, these will sort of get loose and you might lose things, so make sure you got some spare buttons and a little sewing kit to hand. It's got cotton lining in it. Not all the way up though, it's only around sort of the collar and the cuffs. It's just wool on both sides, so you definitely want to wear like a long sleeve undershirt. These are actually very nice. I like them a lot more than the German ones. This pocket is actually a mat pocket. It does have a button on it, but this is absolutely great as a dump pouch. You got a little pocket here, which I'm not sure what that's for on the original one. I actually put a little sweat rag in there, so if I'm getting a bit sweaty, I can just pull that out, wipe my forehead and such. And then you've got your 2 sort of basic pockets which go down to here, so they're pretty big. You do have 1 pocket on the back there, which is about that deep. And then you got all these buttons obviously for braces, and there's a few other buttons lying around as well. So these are the buttons which attach to the back of the tunic. I'll just grab that real quick. You can see how that works. You've got the matching holes there. There's buttons here for Y braces. So you've got 2 points on the right, 2 points on the left, and then 2 at the back. So any braces that fit sort of a button type thing like that. So that's the uniform. You can just of course like run camo stuff. There's Denison smocks. I don't have one of those. There's all sorts of options. This is just the basic uniform that you definitely want if you're doing any impression really. You're going to use one of these most of the time. So, headgear. This is your cap comforter. These have been around since before First World War and they were used for many decades. Definitely a nice bit of kit. Now, you can actually open these out, so they're like a scarf, because they come as like a tube, like that. There are a lot of YouTube videos that show you how to do this properly, and there's a couple of different ways you can sort of fold them and put the ends in so you don't look like some sort of strange garden gnome. I'd get one or even a couple of these. There's a lot of original ones around. This is your open face balaclava. It's literally just wool. It's open at the front, so this is the face end. These can be a bit tight, so if you've got a very large head, I probably wouldn't recommend getting one of these, but it's just one of the original pieces of kit that I wanted to have. It's worn in conjunction with the Mark II helmet, typically. And this is your Mark II helmet, or the soup bowl. So it's very similar to the First World War version, some minor differences. This is an original with a reproduction net over it. And it's also got a reproduction liner, and I think the chin strap might have been replaced at some point. So the last thing is your choice of leg wrap. So the puttees are a much older thing. They date back to sort of First World War, but these actually did stick around, and they kind of came and disappeared and reappeared several times throughout the decade. So these guys are very similar to the World War I ones, but these are sort of short puttees. They're still long as hell, but once you undo this, you'll see there's like a diamond shape, and it's visible on this side, but not that side, so make sure you're actually putting it on the right way. These are repro ones. They're not the best. I think these are just the standard ones from Epic Military. I'm sure you can probably get better ones somewhere. The better option though, really, I say that, I wear the puttees most of the time actually, because I find them a bit more secure, but these are the gaiters. Now there's a lot of these you can get on eBay actually, that are sort of RAF ones that are cheaper, but if you get the Blanco, which you'll definitely need anyway, that's this stuff. There's different colours for different periods and units and things, so just do your research as usual, make sure it's the right one. Get yourself a toothbrush and then just colour them up. The RAF ones will be in like a blue colour, but if you get the Blanco, you can just get the RAF ones cheap and just Blanco it up. You can see the blue there as what they were. There's different sizes of these, so make sure you just get the right size, same with a few other bits of kit. So these DMS boots are actually sort of post-war style boots. They're 1950s up to the Falklands. They do work fine for World War II airsoft purposes though, because as stated at the start, it's not reenacting, so it's okay to take some very minor liberties that don't look too out of place. The main difference with these is the sole. So DMS is direct molded sole. So that's something that's only going to be noticed if you're prone with your feet sticking out, or someone can actually see the soles of your boots, and that's not going to be too often really. So that's a liberty I think it's perfectly acceptable to take, and a lot of reenactors actually use these as well. If you're going real hardcore though, and cost isn't a problem, then sure, go for the ammo boots. The stitching is a little different in places to the ammo boots, but it's so minor it's barely even noticeable. You really have to know what you're looking at to see the difference. These typically will come with standard laces, however. They won't come with the correct leather laces, so you'll have to buy those aftermarket, which is what I did. If I recall correctly, these are actually original laces that were unopened. Some of the reproduction ones I've heard from others are a bit crap. They're prone to break because they're not a sort of thick gauge lace like the originals. These are like pretty thick laces. You'd really have to try to break those. I take care of these with leather cream from time to time. I sort of put a bit on a rag and run it through it because that keeps them nice and supple. There's lots of nice reenactor tips out there on how to take care of old school boots like this. These tend to dig in a bit, especially when they're new, so I've actually got these gel strips I've epoxied on the back so they won't ever come off, and that makes it so much more comfortable. But other than that, obviously, whatever's comfortable for you, inserts and things like that, which I do recommend because they're not the most comfortable boots kind of out the box. You definitely have to wear them in a little bit and change the soles. So this is looking at the P37 webbing from behind. So here's your left pouch and your right pouch, which will be on your front, and obviously these will be on your back. So start with the small pack. I always take my cap comforter and gloves, even if I'm not actually wearing them, because it just pads it out a bit. And I wouldn't necessarily have all this at once, but that's 3.6 ammo for the SMLE, spare capsules and a key. I always use a silver key, CO2, because if you drop it, it's much easier to spot that on the ground, so use a silver one if you can. Or spray it a bright colour. I've done that too. Modern canteen, because I don't drink out of that one, because it's original. It's probably a bit nasty, I wouldn't do that. I've got 4 magazines here for the submachine gun, which sit side by side. These particular ones, the pouch won't close, but they're actually pretty tight in there. Because if you put them like this rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, they actually sit really tight, and they're not going anywhere anyway, so that works. In the right side, if I'm running a submachine gun, I'll have 2 speed loaders. I don't generally carry an extra bit of ammo because the mate's usually got some ammo we can share, so that's about 1,000-ish rounds of spare, roughly. And then I've got my phone and a spare battery in a resealable bag just to waterproof it, and then it's protected at the front by the 2 speed loaders from any potential impacts. So if I've got an SMLE, I'll have a pistol and a spare magazine in here. So it doesn't change a great deal depending on what gun you have, but these pouches are super useful indeed. Right, so let's look at some weapons then. I could talk for a straight hour about how much I love this rifle. This is the S&T SMLE, or number 1 Mark III. So this is a really good option because it's the rifle we entered the war with, right up until the number 4 sort of started to replace it in large numbers for the mid to late stage of the war. Although some troops, especially if you're doing Far East, you could get away with the SMLE for like the whole war because a lot of them never even got number 4s. Everything that could be original on one of these is original on this one, so I absolutely love this one. It's a rifle you can go bonkers with an upgrade if you want. There's of course a number 4 by Aries. You can go for that if your budget's a bit higher, or you're doing like a specific D-Day or something where they would have had a number 4. But yeah, absolutely love this rifle. If you want something a little smaller, you got your old Sten gun. There's a pretty crappy electric one by AGM. You can put up with that if you want. This is a Northeast Sten, so it's a gas blowback. I haven't actually used it yet, but I will at some point. Very nice, very realistic. So there's another option. The submachine gun I started out with was my 1928 Thompson, which is currently in pieces. I sadly can't make an appearance for this video. Much nicer submachine gun than the Sten, but the Sten's very ubiquitous, especially if you're doing airborne. You know, you can have the Mark V Sten, which they also make. You can custom make them. There's a few options out there for stuff like that. The good old plumber's delight. You can't go wrong with it if you're going for that iconic sort of historical cheapo World War II stamped steel submachine gun look. The gun's practically a meme by this point. The tube, not very comfortable at all. Got that horrible sort of grip right there, but it's not made to be comfortable. It was made to shoot 9mm rounds and kill Germans, and it did that just fine. When it comes to things that aren't so sort of common and British, you have the MP18. Now, there is a British gun called the Lanchester Mark I, which is very similar to this, although it is slightly cosmetically different. But you can use this to sort of stand in for a Lanchester. That's kind of what I do. I use this with my German kit, but you can get away with it for British kit, I think, just about, because it looks very similar, and it can also make an excuse as a captured weapon. I tend to use it with the cool looking cap because it looks a little bit more sort of not too typical army, and you can get away with it a little better. But I absolutely love this gun. It's really solid, so that's a potential option if you want something a little bit different. You're looking for a capture gun, MP40. I mean, they used them all the time. This is my old AGM I've had for ages. Looks really nice because I blued it all up and everything. Cut the channel out for the bolt so it looks correct and all that. But yeah, there's plenty of photos of, especially like the SAS guys and the other sort of long-range desert group guys and things like that, using a lot of captured kits. So depending on what you're portraying, you could get away with one of these pretty well. The magazines do fit fine in these pouches. I usually carry about 5 in total, 1 in the gun plus 4 in there, and a couple of speed loaders in here as I showed, and that does the trick. So there's another option for you. So when it comes to pistols, I don't actually use specific holsters. I actually just use the right side pouch, because the only time I carry a pistol is when I'm using my SMLE. With the submachine gun, I don't really feel I ever need the pistol. You can do what you like, but that's just how I do it. I carry mine in here. So this is my 1911. This is a KWC, which is a CO2 one. That's what I use. I've had some issues with mags being bastards over the years, but I have used it a few times when the mags weren't bastards, and it does the job nicely. So you don't have mag pouches as such for these because it's World War II stuff. You can, I suppose, they do exist. But what I tend to do is I have another magazine facing down in the same pouch that the pistol is stored in. So when I need to reload, I pull this magazine out, I put the pistol over the pouch, just drop the empty one in there and reload like that. Feel free to steal that technique. You can't go amiss with some German pistols, like capture pistols. So you got a Walther P38. This one's by WE, not great. Much prefer my P08 Luger. Thanks Josh for that. It's very nice, actually very fun to shoot. And if you feel like being really hardcore, well, there is the Webley. I don't recommend these really because they're not as practical as a magazine-fed pistol, but you know, it's an iconic pistol. This is the 455 Webley, not the 38-200 that they would have had in World War II, but these were still used in large numbers, so you can easily get away with that. Most people aren't going to know the difference whatsoever. I'm going to take this opportunity for a mini rant at S&T. I hope one of you are watching. Where's the Bren gun, guys? You made a Japanese Type 96 LMG that nobody asked for. I got a lovely deactivated Bren over there, but that isn't much good for BB wars, is it? Come on. So I mentioned this pocket earlier when I was talking about the uniform. It's actually a mat pocket, but it's a wonderful dump pouch because it's about the same length as an MP18 magazine, which is longer than the Thompson mag. So anything up to this length will fit fine and it won't even poke out the top. So it's actually quite handy. If I really don't have time, I'll just chuck them on the floor, reload and then pick it up afterwards. But especially if you're stood up and you've got some cover and you've got teammates covering you, it's actually quite useful to do it like this. You can just drop a mag in there and then get your next mag out. They actually might seem like that's in danger of falling out, but it isn't, because when you've got 4 in there, they're quite tight anyway. They don't want to, it's hard to even get them in, so side by side, sort of with the BB side facing forward, so you can orient it like so. And because it's a nice large pouch, you can really just fit anything in there. But that little dump pouch down there is actually wonderful. It's the perfect height, especially if you're stood up. If you've got a smock on, then you can throw it down the smock, because if the belt's actually tight, then that'll keep it in place anyway. However, those pesky automatic weapons are indeed very uncivilised. You should get yourself an SMLE and do the mad minute. Far more satisfying to get kills that way. I hope that was helpful to everyone watching. I really enjoy making these videos. And if it spurred anyone on to get into the kit, don't hesitate to ask any questions at all, just post them down below. If it's anything relating to basic kit and airsoft, I can definitely help you out and I'm happy to do that. So feel free to rate, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good week.